Hey guys, this is your development in the movies information and example. So, here's the basic requirements. You need 8 slides of content, title page, and reference slide don't count. You need to provide basic background information on the character, paint us a picture of the movie, um, then I want you to identify what developmental stage your character is in and make sure you reference the movie, and you talk about the physical, cognitive, social, and emotional aspects that make you think that they're in whatever period they're in. Do this even if you know their age, for instance. So you can use that as some evidence as part of the physical stuff. But I want you to talk about broadly what's going on in that developmental period as well. Please use your textbook and then at least one other peer reviewed source. You will use in text citations in the notes. Using notes is a requirement as well. I'll talk about how to do that really fast. Um, your slideshow is going to stand by itself. So make sure that your notes are comprehensive. So think kind of like a paper. First person, second person is totally fine. You can write it like you're giving the presentation, or you can write it like a paper. It's kind of up to you. Make sure that aesthetically it works out. So, like, this is a lot of words for a slide. You'll see what I'm talking about when we get into my example. Make sure it's not like red font on a black background or like so bold that I can't understand what you're doing. Um, so feel free to have fun with it. You can put videos in or GIFs or pictures. I don't need you to cite videos or GIFs or pictures for this. You should technically for APA, but there's enough going on that I feel comfortable saying that we don't need to cite the extra stuff. You do need to cite the movie, and I will post with this the how to cite a movie information and also my cheat sheet on how I do that. Okay. So just a reminder, you are going to go through the Erikson stage and Bronfenbrenner. Okay. So you will need to kind of write that all out. So without further ado, I present to you Thor 2011 by Julie Murray. So, some brief background on Thor is that we guesstimate he's somewhere in the mid 20s. He is a prince of Asgard. His father is Odin. His brother is Loki. He does have a mother, Frigga. She doesn't do too much there. He has like a merry band of men and women, and they are like best pals, and they go around, they fight stuff, and they're just young and fun. Um, Asgardians have a different lifespan, so we're just kind of guesstimating he's somewhere in his mid 20s. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. Um, so let's look at what Thor's journey is kind of throughout the film. So he begins this movie by almost starting a fight with the Frost Giants, uh, previously warring population that they had worked to reach a peace with. And so he almost starts a fight just because he's being really impulsive and hot headed. Um, and so Odin, who was about to declare him like his royal successor, which everybody thought was going to happen because he's very handsome and physically fit and, you know, the golden boy, Odin got very upset. And so he gets his power stripped from him. His famous hammer Mjolnir is also sent to Earth, and he is no longer deemed worthy of it. And then he actually also Thor gets sent to Earth, specifically New Mexico, and he promptly gets run over by Jane Foster, his new potentially love interest here. This is Natalie Portman. Um, and she is some sort of scientist and I believe an astrologist. It's been a hot second. But anyway, some form of, I think she's looking for wormholes. And so she found him through a wormhole, right? And then Thor is basically trying to settle into his new life in Earth. And let's see, so there's some conflict. He tries to go lift the hammer, he tries to break in. He's still not worthy. His brother Loki, meanwhile, discovers that he was adopted and was formerly a frost giant or half frost giant or something. And so he gets very upset, and Loki is a known trickster, and so he is trying to ruin Thor's reputation, potentially his life. And he takes things a little too far, so he sends this huge metal robot over, and Thor ends up dying to save the rest of the world because he wants to appease Loki. This, of course, means that he is worthy of his powers and his hammer, and so he comes back. The fight moves to Asgard, and in order to save Earth and to stop Loki, he has to break the connection with Earth, the Bifrost or whatever, and so he has to choose like the right thing, basically, overseeing Jane, his love interest again. That was a whirlwind Thor tour. Okay, so then I am arguing that he was in the emerging adulthood stage and enters into the young adulthood stage here. So he certainly has his adult features reached. His aging may or may not begin, depending on his Asgardian blood. If you are a typical young adult, then your hair may start to gray or get thin, your skin gets looser, wrinkles, all that stuff. Generally, you're pretty healthy and your physical health is overall pretty good, but you are starting to see some signs of aging. We also know that cognitive development is happening, so I'm arguing his prefrontal cortex is developing during this movie, real time. So he's hitting peak creativity and expertise, which we see with his fighting style. And keep in mind, he's been raised to fight and be the Prince of Asgard from a young age. And so we do see that he is an expert at those things, though impulsive and reckless and hot-headed, which brings us into the emotional development here. So in the beginning of the film, he was very volatile, but he is more stable at the end, which leads me to believe that his prefrontal cortex is developed and he's thinking things through and is not acting really rash and impulsively. For social development, we see his relationship with Jane Foster and also just kind of interacting with other people that don't look at him as a Prince of Asgard, but rather as like a peer in at Earth, in Earth, on Earth. I don't know what preposition to use. Anyway, so then we see that for normal young adulthood period, that people are often pursuing marriage or children, or marriage and or children. We'll talk about that when we get to Erikson. So next up is Bronfenbrenner. Let me walk you through the things. So we have Thor, of course, in the middle, right? His microsystem is his family, so his mom, his dad, his brother, his friends, Jane Foster's his kind of girlfriend, whatever's going on there, and the Palace of Asgard, maybe Asgard itself being considered as part of his neighborhood. For the mesosystem, we have the Bifrost, that bridge that goes between Asgard and Earth, ironically. So Earth and Asgard interactions. His friend group interacts with his family, which interacts with his friends, and they come to Earth at some point. And then Jane actually also will interact, mesosystem. For exosystem, he is the Prince of Asgard, so he's part of the royalty. He also becomes an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and works with the US government here. For the macrosystem, the Asgard values are honor and loyalty, and also just kind of the whole royal system. And then in the United States, we have a different value system of like independence and free will. For the Chronos system, we're guesstimating, I think it's about 2010, 2011 in the US. So there is a large female empowerment movement happening at this time, which we see with Jane Foster being like an astrophysicist or whatever she is. And there is not like a ruling body. Whatever year it is in Asgard, there's a very strong like Viking type culture with the extremely long lifespans, royalty, loyalty, honor, and also a large drinking culture, which we'll come back to. So for the Erikson stage, I am arguing that he is walking the line between the identity versus role confusion and intimacy versus isolation. So for the identity piece, we see that he needed a wake up call and a affirmation to his role of being a leader, being a prince of Asgard, which is the whole journey of the movie. And he begins to explore long term romantic relationships with Jane Foster. So he does choose like a long distance paused relationship. He chooses his identity, his role over the relationship in this movie, although I think we see Jane Foster come back in later Thor movies. So this is the piece where we're integrating that peer-reviewed article. I actually picked two different ones because I felt like they went together. So there's something called a cage screener, which looks at alcoholism. So if you answer yes to any of these questions, it's an indication that you may have a substance use problem. So if you felt like you should cut down on your drinking, if people annoyed you by criticizing your drinking, have you ever felt bad or guilty about your drinking? You ever had a drink first thing in the morning to steady your nerves or get rid of a hangover? So the Viking culture and physical aspect of them is quite different. So Thor does drink a lot, but that's really in the beginning of the movie, and we see that he doesn't drink as much towards the end. So maybe there was an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, but it seems to have subsided. The other piece of this, though, which is my actual peer-reviewed article, that was a measurement tool, is this article by Storm Shack and al. 2019. So they did research into looking at significant substance use, so having a disorder or meeting criteria for a disorder of alcohol and marijuana specifically, but we're focusing on alcohol. We don't have any indication Thor is smoking marijuana. So they found that having large amounts of alcohol consumption led to negative interactions with your parent. So we see that Odin is quite upset with him. And so I also said that this is a correlational study, which it is. So we can't say alcohol causes bad relationships. We can talk about some of the chicken egg issues here. So is it that he's reckless and impulsive and drawn to alcohol and also makes bad decisions? Does alcohol cause bad decisions? Yes. Right. So it's really difficult to tease this out, but we see that the reckless, impulsive behaviors along with alcohol consumption could be a piece of the puzzle about why Odin is so upset with him, along with, of course, almost starting a war. So here are the references. You'll see the second one down is Brannig and all that. So that's the movie there. Again, I'll be posting how to do that in the notes along with this video. So really quick, I want to show you a couple of PowerPoint things. So this is PowerPoint, okay? So first and foremost, when you go into design, you can pick a whole bunch of things, right? You can then pick different colors up here. And you can even pick your own colors, right? So I don't know, maybe we want to be pink. So exciting, okay? So you can do that. There's also this cool thing up here, design. So you can pick a whole bunch of things, which makes it look cool, right? The other way to get to it if you don't have this button is when you're on, when you're on the home, you go to design and then design ideas over here, right? Okay. So most of you will have this view pop up, which means you need to get to the notes. So you can either come down here and drag up, you can click notes, or you can go to view notes page. I don't like this as much because you don't get to see the rest of it, but it's there for you, okay? So let me show you my notes, I guess would be helpful. So these are kind of light because I didn't write out everything. So you may have a good paragraph chunk under here. So you can see, where is it here? You can see Bronfenbrenner, I wrote everything out in there. Over here, you can see stuff. I'm still citing down here, right? Um, so there's the movie citation. Where's the thing I want? Yeah, so here you can see I just have notes in there. So you'll notice I talked a little bit more than was available on the slides, so just be mindful of that. And again, we're looking for background, general kind of flow of the movie, what's going on with your character specifically, then talk about physical, cognitive, emotional, social. But here, this is a good example. You can add all sorts of fun stuff, right? So we can look at all those options. Then we have Bronfenbrenner. Make sure you write out all the things in the notes. Bergson stage, blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right. Those are my helpful hints. I hope this will assist you. Please email me if you have any